Chair.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Te rangatira nui a Parekura e moi I ti oki mutunga. Ka nui te mihi kia koutou a te tita rafiti e te whānau o Parekura. Haere mai, tēnā koutou katoa. We come today to mourn a loss of a friend, a colleague and the matua of our party, Te Raupa Reipa. Parekura was and touched the lives of so many of us here today. And they say that grief is the price we pay for love. And at the tangi that we were all at, we saw just exactly how much Parekura was loved, how much he was respected, how much people thought of him. The grief, the love and the laughter, because wherever Parekura went, there was always laughter that went with his presence as well. And I want to say, before I go on, just a big thank you to the people that are here today, from Hauiti Marae, who welcomed us on, who showed so much araha, manakitanga, in hosting us when we were there. We mourn the loss of Parekura, but we also celebrate his life. He started from humble beginnings as a labourer, as a shearer, as a printer, a qualified printer. He went on to become a community development worker in the Department of Labour, in the Te Punikokori as well, before becoming a minister. But he never forgot where he came from. He never forgot his people. And I think that's the thing that all of us will remember more than anything else. He never became a big fish head and shiny pants, as he called it. He maintained those connections. And I remember more than once in our caucus meetings when we were talking about high-level sort of issues on policy and getting rather hypothetical about things, that it would be Parekura that would bring us down to earth with the family that I met when I was travelling up today, and talked about that family that he met, those people that he met, and what they will get out, and asked what will they get out of this particular policy that we're pushing out in front of us. And often when I would ring him, he would be on the road, because he was on the road an enormous amount, and you get this road noise in the back of us trying to understand Parekura as he was travelling up and down the country. And as somebody was saying to us today, I mean, his last trip from Wellington back to his home, Marae, he stopped off, despite being in pain, despite having to take morphine, stopped off at many of the Labour branches and communities as he went up the road to say goodbye to people. That was the sort of the measure of the man. But I don't want to say that he didn't talk about policy, he didn't talk about those things, because under his time as minister, he introduced iwi radio, he introduced Maori TV. 67% more Maori went on to tertiary education. Maori unemployment halved during his time. He made a huge contribution to not only his people, but to the people of New Zealand. And when I often spoke to him about his time as a minister, he would often not talk about so much about being a minister, but refer back to those days when he was working for the Department of Labour in Te Punikokori. And he would talk about how many people he was able to get into employment, how many people he was able to push through and get into schools, and how many of his people came out the other end. Those are the things that he was most proud of. He was a wise counsel to me, not only on the marae, as the Prime Minister said. When you were sitting beside Parekura, he was always the person who made you feel reassured by his presence sitting beside you. But by the way he came to you, and I remember often he would come into my room in the last few months. Kia ora, Chief, as he walked in through the door, because he always called everybody Chief. It wasn't just because I was the leader of the Labour Party. Everybody was known as Chief. Kia ora, Chief. He planted himself down on the sofa in my room, and my staff would say, look, we've got people waiting outside ready to come in. And I'd have to say, look, Parekura's arrived. He's going to be here for a couple of minutes, so they're just going to have to wait for a little while. And Parekura would get whatever he wanted to say off his chest and tell me what he thought. And then he'd say, "Kapai, Chief," and he'd be out the door. And I'd be left sometimes knowing exactly what he was talking about, and sometimes with a kind of a feeling that I knew what he was talking about, but not necessarily got it anchored down. But more often than not, it would come to me during the course of the day, and I'd go, "Oh, of course, that's what he meant." He had that sort of elliptical way of talking and discussing, but a way that actually I think ended up making more impact on you because you had to fight to understand what it all meant. His last communication to me was over a text. I was overseas and he texted me about 5 days before he passed away. And it was started off, "Kia ora, Chief," and he went through a long list of the people that he had met on his most recent travels. And as he finished, he said, "I'm having a bit of trouble typing here because of this new iPhone that I've got." And sure enough, the predictive text on the iPhone has made his elliptical way of speaking much more complicated than... So I have this on my phone now, and I look at it from time to time, and it's like a puzzle to me. I keep looking at it. So I wrote back to him and said, thank you for your message, Kapai, Chief, and by the way, you need to work on your typing." And he wrote back and said, "Kapai, Chief, happy travels, safe travels." So I have that with me. His way of speaking extended to the debating chamber as well, and is well known, a famous story, a question I think by Winston Peters to Parekura when he was minister, was just exactly how many additional Maori are now in employment. And Parekura jumped up and said, "Heaps." Wasn't an exact figure, but everybody knew exactly what he meant. As I said, he gave his life to his people, and we are grateful so much for you here, those people that are sitting here today, his family, his iwi, who gave up so much of him so that we could have him with us and leading us in where we were going. We appreciate that, and I want to say thank you. In Parekura's maiden speech, he talked about a school bus. Him walking to school 5 kilometres there and back with his 7 brothers and sisters to school, while a school bus that was often full of Pākehā kids driving by him and going to school and then driving back past them as they were walking home. And he said in his maiden speech, as he became minister, he said, "Now I'm the driver of that school bus. I'm the Associate Minister of Education and I'm responsible for school transport." And he said, "As one of the drivers, you can be damn sure I'm going to stop the bus and pick up as many Maori as possible." He did that all his life, and he picked up a whole lot of Pākehā along the way as well. E moi, e pare, hari atu rā. Toka hoa, toka mātua, e te o Māori. Tēnā koutou, kēnā koutou. Rest in peace, Parekura. Kia ora, Chief.
Mr Speaker.
Materia Turai.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā